Hello, YouTube land. This is Brentonsawin coming to you from Lexington, Kentucky, the Bluegrass State. Before we get started here, if anyone has anything they would like to share here on this show, you can contact me at brentonsawin@gmail.com. And if you want to contribute to help with this channel, you can go to a link in the description, PayPal me, and I appreciate every contribution that I get. I promise you that. And anyway, I had 2 videos so far this week. Be sure not to miss them. And I titled them Starting with New 2017, just so it makes them stand out a little bit better, because I haven't been doing 2 and 3 or whatever a week here lately. So look for those, and thanks for watching. And anyway, today we have a Bigfoot Outlaw, Cindy Goodbrake, and I talked with her maybe about a month ago, and here not too long ago I had Kumbo on, so it's kind of cool to have another person that knows Kumbo and Bear and all them, and she has some really cool stuff to share. So let's just get to it. And Cindy, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing okay. You know, it's a little cold out, but you know, it is that time of year, so I'm kind of just not I'm not looking forward to the snow, but oh well.
Yeah, the older you get, the more snow hurts. The cold weather hurts, and the hot weather just miserable.
Yeah,
But
I'm so not used to this northern.
Most of the experience that you have probably hasn't been in the north, has it? Up in Idaho?
Yeah, I've been researching since 99, 98, 99, and I moved up here from, pardon me, from Texas, mainly East Texas, outside of Dallas, and in 2004. So yeah, I've been doing a lot up here since 2004.
Okay, I thought you recently went up there. All right.
No, but I mean, I go back to Texas, every other year or when we can. So.
Right. Yeah, you went from where it was really, really hot to where it gets really cold.
Oh yeah, yeah. But in Texas, it's a wet cold, so that still can be bad sometimes. It can still get into your bones, and so really, I have to go to Florida if I don't want. If I don't want to be cold.
I lived in Texas for a while, man. I tell you what, it got so hot down there. But I worked outside when I was younger, when I lived down there, and it was just sometimes unbearable. When it was 110,
oh yeah,
it wasn't a heat index. It was straight 110.
Yeah, and then the humidity too, kind of makes that makes that worse, depending where you're at. So
we could literally cook an egg on the car hood, for real.
Yeah, I know. I lived there most of my life,
Yeah, and when you worked outside there, man, you had to. We would cover up the tools that we were going to be using, because they would get so hot in the sunlight that you couldn't pick them up.
I know.
You had to really plan for your day down there, and you had to be careful too, because there's it's dangerous when it gets that hot.
I know, that's crazy, right?
Yeah,
I know, it's completely different. Completely different up here. So I really like it up here. Just the snow sometimes just kind of gets to me.
I'll put the pictures and stuff that you sent of Idaho up there. I'll put them as we're talking. It looks like really beautiful country. Of course, the Northwest is beautiful, so. And squatchy.
Yeah, I live in North Idaho, Bonner County. So Washington is just down the road there.
So you're about to be in the midst of winter here soon.
Yeah, well, it snowed here actually already a foot, and it's pretty much melted. But I mean, it's up on the mountain, so.
All right. Well, Cindy, if you want to tell us what you want to tell us here. tell us about some of the stuff you've done with Bear and Kumbo if you want, and
Oh,
go from there.
well, I'm, excuse me, I'm getting over some crud. So in '99, I started looking into, around that time when the internet came around. I saw the video, the Patterson-Gimlin film, when I was little. I don't remember who took me or what. I thought my father did, but I'm not really sure now that I think about it. Because I asked him, I said, do you remember when you took me to see the Patterson-Gimlin film? And he doesn't remember, so who knows? But I saw it when I was little, and it really scared me. And I was born and raised in South Texas, and I grew up on the beach. So it's not like my family camped out or did a whole bunch of stuff like that. So I didn't need to be around the woods. Now, when I moved to Dallas when I was 20, and I met and married my husband there, he had a military career, and so we had a place out east of Dallas. So the Big Thicket was not too far down the road, and when I got into researching Bigfoot, I met different people online, and this one guy took me out and taught me a lot, and then after that, I hooked up with a group of people, which some of you all know as Bear and Kumbo. They're pretty popular, and some of the other people that have been out there talking about, and that was really back in the days, kind of like before people were researching like a whole lot, as far as like the early days of the internet. We did a lot of stuff in East Texas, excuse me, and also North Texas. And I've also been to, a couple of times I've been to Brown Springs because I lived there in Northeast Texas, which is, not far from Dallas. And I actually traveled to my office every day to Dallas to work, and I couldn't wait to leave. Just got to be very stressful. And so from 99 or 2000 to, I don't know, 2003, 2004, I moved up north. So in that time, I really got to research with some really neat people. And so they pretty much taught me everything that I know. And Kumbo talks a lot about the infrasound and, how it's affected us. And that happened to me. There was a group of us that would go out. And over time, those couple of years, people will come and go. But on my hand, I can tell you, there was 7 of us I can think of off the bat. And one of those people was Bear and, Kumbo and Vicky and Dan and some other people. So one time we had gone to this one area in East Texas, and there was quite a bit of us. But I remember Kelly, she was one of the other researchers, she would get really affected by the infrasound. She would get sick, and she would have some other strange things. Her eyes would kind of swell up. And I remember this one incident that happened to me. And when we were all out there, and I remember wherever I was standing, I think Kelly was standing in front of me in the woods, but I remember for a moment there, I was I couldn't move. I could see what was happening, but it was kind of slow motion. I couldn't move. I was aware of kind of what was happening. It was very, very strange. And that's really all that I remember. And then I was really, really tired, and then I was sick. And I remember going to sleep somewhere. I don't know if it was in a tent or a car or back at wherever we were staying. But it wasn't until years later that when Kumbo was talking about and explaining the infrasound and how it works, and that's probably, what happened to me. And I know that's what happened to Kelly, but I didn't know at the time. I didn't understand about any of that stuff. But we have, they just have been really awesome people to hang out with. And sometimes I, wish I could hop on a plane and, go, to some of their outings. But it's hard because I have a family and I have a child still in school, and I'm very involved in his life. So, so those are some of my really good memories. East Texas. Another really scary memory is of Brown Springs, Oklahoma. You've heard of Brown Springs, right?
Yeah, I've heard of it. I've heard of them talking about it being one of the scary areas.
Yeah, so one time, I know there's a group of us there. I've been there 3 different times and with different people. And this one time, with, I was there and we had spread out. I remember the springs, going to the cemetery, really creepy. I remember going down to the Red River, I think. But I mainly remember the cemetery, and I think that was 2000. I'm not really sure. But that incident, or that really crazy story that you heard that happened there of that couple, I'm not really sure what the time frame was, but that just really creeped me out. And so, that was one of the scariest places I have been to. And I, after that second or third time that I went, you know what? You would not catch me there in the dark. There is no way. I would not be there in the dark.
What happened to the couple?
So I'm not sure exactly when. I had heard this story. Bear tells the story really, really good. There was a couple out there parked, and they were found the next morning murdered. And the way they died was just really horrific. The male was found in the dirt, and I think his head was twisted. And he was
okay, yeah.
The female was also found on the hood of the car, and she had been, attacked and some other unspeakable things done to her, and
yes,
so it happened.
That's very, very disturbing. I couldn't remember what the story was at Brown Springs. I remember him talking about Brown Springs being one of the scariest locations, but now I remember the story. It's horrible, horrifying.
Yeah, it's super horrible. So I never went back there ever again. And now it's all different. And I know Kumbo talked about that, and they talked about and described how it's changed now. And so, that's one of the places, mainly East Texas, and where our places, we have a place by Lake Tawakoni, excuse me, or my husband's family did, now that we live up north. And there was a lot of Bigfoot activity there by Lake Tawakoni, but I never really researched around my house because it bothered me. I know the Texas Bigfoot Research Center has been somewhere back there. I've been researching too with some of those guys back in the day. So they've used some footage that they've seen, not too far from my house, by Lake Tawakoni. So, but we also had horses, and we would go riding up to the Kaimichi Mountains in Hanovia. I know I'm saying it wrong. I always say it wrong, in Oklahoma. And now, they have that Bigfoot festival there, and it's this popular place. But ever since '97, we would take our horses up there, and we would ride, and sometimes we would go in October with a lot of friends, and we would all camp out for a week, and we would go riding up in the mountains, 30 miles in a day. And sometimes people would stay back at camp. Pardon me. And sometimes a train of us would leave, and we would ride, and, that's what we would do. So my husband has an aunt that lives in that area, and she is friends with, different people in the community. And there have been some very disturbing incidents that have happened in that part of the state of Oklahoma as well. I think that's southeastern Oklahoma. You've heard of Hanovia and that area.
Yeah.
Have you heard of that area? Okay.
The siege at Hanovia.
Yes. And my aunt knows that family. And the way that whole story was told by the BFRO, there's not, it's just not the way it happened. And so, it happened just like how you hear it there on the siege. If you go on Netflix not Netflix, YouTube, and look for the siege of Hanovia, you will hear that story. And it happened just like that. And,
yeah, it seemed like they were coming to the house, and it was getting worse and worse. And eventually, the dude shot one of them, and they came out of the woods and gathered up the body. The other Bigfoot did, and that sounds scary as heck. And it seemed like the BFRO people that came out to help. It seemed like to me that they were too scared to stay.
Well, from what I was told, is that one of the guys that came out, because they requested a hunter. They didn't want somebody to come out to help them with it as far as, like, what is this? They wanted somebody to come out to get rid of these things that were bothering them. And I think they requested a hunter. And the individual that came, he was an older gentleman, kind of not what they expected. But that doesn't matter. The thing that matters is that it happened just like they described it in that story. So you would have to hear the story. These things were coming to the family's cabin and slapping, on their house, harassing the family members, and, they shot one and they killed it. It's plain and simple. And they came and they got the body, and then, whatever else happened. And I believe the family, I'm not going to say their name, but, I've asked them myself, and I believe them. It happened just like that. And unfortunately, when stories are not told correctly, it doesn't help the situation, because people just believe whatever the media says.
Right.
And
it started over food.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the deer meat was missing from the meat lock or wherever it was, and it was crazy. So, I would encourage anyone to go hear that interview by the guy. What was it? Is it Sasquatch Chronicles that did that?
Yeah. That's where I learned the truth about it. From Wes there on Sasquatch Chronicles. And it's labeled Siege at Hanovia, too, so you can easily go look through his videos and find Siege at Hanovia. And it's excellent program, that's for sure.
So, my husband and myself and our other family members, we would take our horses up there, and sometimes with friends. And in 98 or 99, we went, I think it was 97, we went camping there. And my husband said, hey, I have an aunt up there. So I remember we went camping, and we didn't have our horses or nothing. We were just sitting around the campfire, and I heard the most craziest sound. And that would be my first Bigfoot howl or I call it a siren sound. And I told my husband, I said, what is that? Here we are in the middle of the mountains, not even close. We're further up the creek. We had to go past the little town of Hanovia, which really at that time only consisted of the post office store, a cabin house, and, whatever the firehouse, I don't remember. But, if you blink, you miss it. So we were way up in the woods camping, and There was probably only like 5 of us. We did not have any horses. We were checking out the area so that we could, take a look around to take our horses in the future. And I remember hearing the sound kind of like, and it stopped, and it started again. And it sounded like a siren. And I told my husband, what is that? And he's like, I have no idea. And I just heard it like for maybe a minute and a half, and that was it. And it really bugged me. And then in 98 or 99, when I started researching, I thought, I'll be darned, that's what that was. So it just really freaked me out, knowing what happened there, knowing all these years that, my husband would always say, don't go off by yourself, if he's off riding with some of the other people. So one day, a group of us took off, and my 8-year-old, he's not 8 now, he's 23. But at the time, I think he was 8 or something, he had asthma. So we had forgot his inhaler. So I said I would go back and get it. So I was on my horse. I forgot which horse it was, but he was kind of hard to control. And I went back to camp, and then these forest rangers came. And they started asking me questions. Where's your paperwork? And I'm like, what paperwork? For the horses? And I said, well, it's in my truck. Because when you travel with your animals, you have to test them for, I think, for Coggins, or I can't remember now. But, that's what I thought they were asking me. I said, well, it's in it's in here. He said, no, not your horse papers. Where's your papers, your permit for camping here? And I was like, we don't have one. We've been coming here for years. I didn't know you needed one. And he says, well, it's posted everywhere. And I'm like, no, it's not. And we've even gone into the store. There's nothing posted anywhere. Well, by this time, my husband had come back with the rest of the people, and we all got freaking tickets. They asked us a lot of questions. What are you doing here? Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, we're camping, and, we're camping and riding our horses. I mean, big deal. But they just were asking a lot of stupid questions. Who's here with you? I was like, what? So they wrote us tickets. I will never forget that. And they were not cheap tickets either. I was so embarrassed. I was horrified. OMG, I broke the law. How come we didn't know about this? So we ended up leaving, and we had to pay the fine. I mean, between me and my husband, it was hundreds of dollars. I was just mortified. But it was until years later that I was told that those forest rangers had been going around asking people, questions, because probably there was all those incidents happening in the area with Bigfoot. They were not the only family. So that made sense of why they were drilling us, but that ticket just really made me mad. So, and that was only one incident. Another time, we were camping, and our horses were tied up, and it was, I'm trying to think how many people were there. I think it was just our family members. So we were inside the tent, and I was on a cot. I think my son was on a cot, and my husband was laying down in the tent. And the howls started. And this was after 1999. I think it was 2000, because I had started researching, and I knew what they were. And I heard some howls, and I was thinking, oh, my gosh. Okay, so the howls kind of like circled our tent, kind of like at 2 o'clock, and then later it was like at 5 o'clock, and then it was like at 8 o'clock, and finally it was dawn. I did not get a lot of sleep, and my husband said, he said, I think he called out my name, and he sat up after he heard some of the noises. So he went to our truck, and I heard him open up the truck as it was going ding, ding, ding. And, he kind of just stood there, and then, he checked, I heard him messing in there probably with our, rifle or, checking to be sure that he had whatever there on hand. And then he eventually came back to bed. And so that was just, I've had many nights that we have camped out there. And I'm just thankful that nothing crazy happened. And now that's such a hot spot. And, the incident that happened there, people talk about it. And so I did a lot of more research in East Texas. And then my husband, who was active military, got sent up north. So I moved up here with my family and in 2004. And where I live here in Bonner County is right in a valley. And I got here in July of 2004. June of 2004, because I remember I wanted to go horseback riding up on the mountain here, and I didn't have a sitter because my kids were still pretty little. So we ended up going riding a couple of days later, I think after I had met some local people here, and it was just amazing. It reminded me a lot of Oklahoma and the Kainamishi Mountains. And in October, I had been here a couple of months, and I knew some of the people up here had heard I was a Bigfoot researcher. And because we had the horses, we, bought hay. So we went to this area called Priest Lake. There was a guy there who where we bought our hay from. And I don't know how the topic came up, but we were talking, and I asked him if he ever had any kind of, he told me he was an outfitter back in the day on the St. Joe, which is more south from South Idaho, the St. Joe Wilderness. And he said that him and his partner had taken some, what I'm going to call city people, to the camp, and when they approached, they heard a lot of noises, trees crashing. They were terrified. Something clearly did not want them there. So they ended up leaving, canceling the whole thing, and they ended up going back there like the next day, and the whole camp was destroyed. And they had been going here for years, doing the same operation, and then all of a sudden this happened, and he did not know what it was. He just knew that they were not going to go back there, and he told me that was the last time they did not use that spot anymore. And he said getting another outfitter set up was not easy because the process of getting licensed or registered, I'm not sure what you call it, but he was telling me it was a lot of trouble. So he said that was a very scary situation, especially, when you have your people that you're supposed to be accountable for, and they just went back, and everybody was like, what the heck was that? So I also had a cop. There's a town down the road here called Outlaw, Idaho, and there's a Highway 54. I talked with I think he was a state trooper at the time, and he said he had got a phone call of something running in the area, and so he came to check it out or something, and he said he saw with his own eyes something crossed Highway 54, and he said it was a Sasquatch. So that's how he did his report. So I think that report is on the BFRO website for Kootenai County, maybe in the 2000 year. I'm not sure. Maybe it was late 1999 or something. I'm not sure. But so word kind of got out, and I had some people calling me, and I would hear their stories. And when October came, I wanted to see what was happening in my area, because we have researched so much in East Texas and, also in Mississippi on Bear's property, his grandfather's, his property. So, I wanted to see what would happen up here if I could, get any response back. So I had a friend who, is a neighbor who also has the same interest in, so I said, will you come with me? So I ended up going on one side of my mountain up this logging road, and I told her, you have to be quiet. We may or we may not hear something, but you have to be quiet and be patient. And I said, don't be talking, don't be doing a lot of talking, let's just listen. And she had heard some recordings that I have. And one of the recordings that really creeped me out was when some of the people that I hung out with were in East Texas, and one of the girls made a call. I think it was a distress call. I'm not really sure. I don't remember. But what happened next was really creepy. She made a call, and in East Texas, I'm not sure what area, but they got the whole clan coming, like hollering back, screaming, and you could hear just a whole bunch of them, and they were coming in closer. And then you could hear like the alpha male roar. There was no mistaking this was the head honcho of the whole group. And I have that recording. It is really creepy. So from July to October, I was getting to know my area, my neighbors. I had not done too much. I'm on 6 acres, and it's 6 acres, 10 acres, and then I can hop on my four-wheeler and go up the mountain, so I'm right here. And there's thousands of acres of state land right up here where I'm at. My mountain is called Hoodoo Mountain. And the Native Americans from back in the day, the town next to me is called Spirit Lake. So there's some history with the name of the town Spirit Lake. And I was also told by a lady who is from the Colville tribe that she had heard that Hoodoo Mountain was named by the Native Americans back in the day. And I said, well, why did they name it Hoodoo? Because if you look up Hoodoo, it's really creepy, the definition. Kind of like, superstitious. And then I had talked to other people that this area here was known for superstitious, meaning. What that meaning is, I don't know, but it's just very, very creepy. So that was just something that I thought was just, really crazy. So I wanted to be very careful how I did my research. So my friend came with me. We went up on the mountain, and I made a call. Now, I'm 10 miles from my house, so I thought it was okay, and I did have a weapon on me. Now, it was 2 females, so that probably was not the smartest thing. And I can hear a bear now, wanting to slap me for doing that, but I did. I was not at my house. So I made a call, and we waited a little bit. She was getting anxious, and I was telling her, Sue, be quiet. So then we went to the other side of the mountain, and I did the same call, and within 10 minutes, I could hear from where we had just left, I had actually called them in, and then they were screaming, and that they were coming to where we were at. And I was trying to record them, but when they got very close to us, I'm not going to lie to you. We both hopped in the car, and I said, crap. And I started my car because I had to come down this logging road, and I came the long way to my house because I didn't want them following me here. And I don't know if they did follow me here, but I went the long version. But what happened in East Texas happened here. That same reaction. You could hear the alpha male or female roar, and I was like, oh my God, what? That was really stupid. So she was crying. She was freaked out. And she's like, oh my gosh, it sounds just like you're recording. Because I let her listen to the recording of what happened in East Texas to my friends, that she had got, Lori, my friend Lori, had gotten a really good recording of the group of people that they were with. And so that was in October. And then winter came, and I really didn't do too much because it was snowing, and, I'm just was not going to be out in the mountains with the snow and all that. So after that, that next year, my husband's unit, it was 2005, the colonel was telling me that they were probably going to go to Iraq. So my kids were still little. I was really stressed out. I didn't have a lot of time to do, Bigfoot hunting or anything like that. I volunteered for our family support. And I was just having a really hard time adjusting to here in 2005. And I sure as heck did not want to stay here. I wanted to go back to Texas if he was going to Iraq. I did not want to stay here. So because my husband was over the motor pool, he was what they call AGR. He was over the motor pool here in the area where I live. And so in 2005, I was outside watering my horses, and I was looking where the water trout is at, and I noticed my horse's tail and mane were messed with. And I had seen this in East Texas, and I didn't know what it was, and Bear had talked about it, the braiding of horses. It's not really a braid, it's really their hair like messed up. So my horse JJ, he's a quarter paint, and we had a quarter Palomino, and we had a thoroughbred, my husband's horse. Well, my horse and the Palomino were both, their manes were all messed up, and so were their tails, like where their tails had been parted. And I thought, well, that's strange, because I had seen that in at our place down in Texas before we moved up here. So I was, so I just said, I just watered and fed him, and I just, was looking down, and I saw a print. I was like, holy crap, because it was clearly, mistakably a footprint. But there's so many pine trees around here that there was pine needles on the ground. And I went and I called my son. Again, he was probably 9 or 8 at the time. He came outside and I showed him. And he's like, wow, that's crazy. And I said, see that? And I said, okay. And then I covered it up. And then a couple of days later, I uncovered it and I tried to find the other print, but there was just too many pine needles on the ground. And then I uncovered it because it was going to rain. And, I used to cast, I used to do all that, but I don't really do that anymore because I know they exist, and it's a real pain other than taking an audio recorder out with you. I'm really into audio to recording vocals and things like that, and, maybe getting a good picture. But when you have to take all this crap out with you, in a backpack, it just gets, like, really annoying, and then you have to take a weapon. So, at this time, I saw the print, and I was like, wow, that's crazy. So it was days later that I uncovered it, and I was like, okay, whatever, And then I saw another print outside my bedroom window, and, okay, not outside my bedroom window, outside my sliding glass door. It was still outside my window, but closer to my kitchen. But that one was not as clear, so I wasn't really sure, but I was looking at it, trying to think, you know, because the sand there, I mean, the soil is more, it's not like clay, but we had a swimming pool down. And so where the print was, it just was kind of hard to distinguish, more so where it was by my horse, you know, where we had watered them. That was very clear. So in 2005, I took a report by Silverwood. This guy was coming home from work, and he was coming home down Bruner Road, I think, and this kid ran across the street, and then he seen this creature, broad daylight, 5 o'clock sometime, and it was summertime. This creature stopped, looked at him, and it didn't have a scary look on its face. He described it as being a young Sasquatch having an interest in this child, but obviously the child was scared, and it ran across the street to his home. And then this young Bigfoot just went back into the pine grove. And there's a lot more to the report, but I remember going to go check it out, and everything he told me was just like, you know, the tracks, the house. And that was in 2005. So I got a ton of reports of different stories, and I've checked out some, and others, I didn't have time because I was very busy with my family, and I just didn't have a lot of time to, I had enough activity here where I live. So other times I've been up riding, and me and my girlfriend had been followed. Something was following us. We had rocks thrown at us, and for some reason I smelled cinnamon out in the middle of the woods. I don't know what that means, but it was just very strange. And I just had a ton of things like that I've done up here where I live. And then one day, my husband and me were gone. We were at a base that's not too far away from here shopping, and then we had come home, and it was nighttime, and my phone rang. And my best friend was not the commander's wife, the first sergeant. He was first sergeant at that time. She called me and she said, "Hey, have you heard?" And I said, "What?" And she goes, they're going to Iraq. And I said, "What? Like, how? For sure?" And she said, "Yeah, it's a done deal." And I forgot what she said. Something's been signed. I don't know. So her husband wanted to talk to my husband because they do the phone chain, whatever. And I was just freaking out because I was not ready for that. And, I'm pretty tough, but I just gave the phone to my husband, and I went outside to go, the kids were watching TV, and I went outside. I think it was summertime. For some reason, I'm thinking it was fall, but my friend reminded me the other day that, because I asked her, I said, "When you called me that night, what time of year, when was it?" And she swears it was summertime. So, and here at night it gets cold. So I went outside. It was super dark, and our light that we had in our backyard is not that great. But it was like 7 o'clock or later, because here it was dark, and it was cooler, that I can tell you. So it couldn't have been 7 o'clock, because summertime here is still light. So I fed the horses, did my thing, and I was just shaking because I was not ready for him to go to Iraq. That was still right now, it makes me emotional. And I went behind the barn, and I was crying a little bit because I just had to let it out. And it's not like I was like crying a lot, but I remember how stressful it was. And I didn't know I knew I had to be strong because it is what it is. I am a military wife, and I just can't have your cry and then be done with it. So I heard something from the woods. It was like a cooing noise. I don't know how else to describe it. And I jumped up and I ran back to the light area from closer to my sliding glass door, and I stood outside. I could see my husband on the phone, and I was thinking, oh God, this is really happening. So then I heard howls off far away, and they were definitely Bigfoot howls, and it kind of made me smile because I thought, wow, that's crazy. But I heard something from the woods. But I just shook it off, and then I went inside, and my husband was trying to, console me, whatever. He's not very, like touchy-feely, he's more of the type like, hey, suck it up, buttercup. So, he said, yeah, that was a phone call, and I was like, okay, okay. So that whole year and into 2006, I think, when they were trying to get ready, we had put our house up for sale, and I had taken more, Bigfoot reports, and then at the last minute, my husband did not go to Iraq. We went to another part of the country, West Virginia. So I was with, we took our horses to West Virginia, and we were actually living off the Greenbrier River. I didn't really have a lot of Bigfoot incidents there because I just, didn't have a lot of time to research there. So my husband retired around 2007, so we had been in West Virginia for about a year, and then we decided to come back to North Idaho because this is, we had a house here, and this is where we wanted to finish raising the kids. So we ended up coming back here with our horses, and, life kind of just went on, and he was out of the military, and then he had to have something done to his neck. It was summertime, and I remember my husband had to have surgery, and we had not been back that long. I'm trying to think, 2007, 2008, maybe a year. So this one night, I think it was the second night, he was home he had his neck fused or something. I really can't remember exactly, but I know he had something done to his neck, and he was laying in our bedroom. The windows were open, and me and the kids were in the living room watching TV. And he said, hey, what's that noise? And I go, what noise? And he said, I heard something from the woods. So I opened up our kitchen door, and I looked outside. I didn't hear anything. I didn't, see the horses acting funny. So I said, well, what'd you hear? And he said, kind of like a ooh from the woods. So the only thing I can think of is the female that was around my barn that night. She probably came back. I think a female Sasquatch had come around 2 or 3 times when, things were kind of, sad or something was going on. But other than those couple of incidents, I did not hear her anymore. And then it was these last couple of years, I've done a lot of research here, and I've heard, the local clan here, and, they're just kind of all over the place because where my house sits and where the mountain is, I get a really good, things bouncing off the mountain. So I get really good reception here, and I've heard just tons and tons of howls and recordings and grunts. And I have like 16 nights of recordings that I have. So it's just been crazy on just everything that's happened up here.
Right. Well, have you ever got a visual on them up there?
Not up here in Texas. Only was when I have seen one only one time, and that was in Silver Springs, Texas. But not up here. I could hear them crashing in the woods, and this past May.
What did the Texas one look like?
Well, it was nighttime, and we were at this private residence, and we were on top of this kind of like a barn, I guess. I mean, not on top of the roof. There was like a balcony, and our cars were down there, and then there was a house. There was, I think, 3 or 4 of us, and I wanted to get a drink from my car. It pretty much had been a dead night. We really hadn't heard too much. And so I walked down the stairs, and I walked to the trunk of my car, and I opened it up, and then one of the people I was with had night vision, and he said, "Okay, don't move. There's one 50 feet in front of you," or something. And I was like, "Okay, what?" So I just closed the trunk, and I looked, and I could see in the tree line something standing there, and I started shaking, and there was no way I was going to stay there. So I hopped up the stairs, and I was shaking really bad, and I turned around, and it had gone back into the tree line. So it was nighttime, but I could see its face, and it was scowling, and it was just really, really, really scary, and it just had this look on its face, even though it was dark, but through the shadows and all that, it just had this mean look on its face. And after that night, I swore off Bigfooting. I swore off, researching. It scared me so bad. But so after that, I just, said I would be more careful. So up here where I live, this past May, I have a neighbor here. And it's all woods around here where I live. He said he sent me a text on Tuesday. Now, on the weekend, the Monday prior to Labor Day weekend, it was a Monday night, and I came home around 11:15. And it was a school night, and my husband was in bed already, and I was coming up. I have a long driveway, and it's really creepy. It's all wooded and stuff. And I had been telling my husband, we need to put up better lights outside because, it's really scary. He likes to make fun of me. He's like, "Oh, you shouldn't be, scared." And I'm like, "Well, I am." So I came up inside my house, and my husband goes, he called out my name, and I go, "Yeah, it's me." He doesn't normally call out my name. I just come home and I, go to bed. So I went to bed eventually, and that next morning I had a text from my neighbor. I didn't read it right away because my husband said, "Well, I didn't want to say anything last night, but something slapped the side of the house." And I said, "What?" He said something hit, and then he changed it to hit. I guess I need to tell y'all, my husband doesn't really care about Bigfoot. It's not that he doesn't believe, that he believes. He just does not care. It's actually a touchy subject between us. because back in the day, I was gone all the time researching. So, you know, he kind of has, you know, it gave him a bad taste in his mouth because I was always gone like all the time. I was obsessed with that. So first he said something slapped the side of the house, and then he said, you know, something hit the house. And I said, you said splash. He said, whatever. And I said, okay. And then I ran outside and I looked by my bedroom window because that's where I hear a lot of activity off into those woods. And I didn't see anything, you know, again, because of these stupid pine needles. And I'm not exactly, you know, cleaning up every week because sometimes I could break the whole freaking 2 acres of where the pine needles hit. And then I can have a little windstorm come through and it's, you know, it's another mess. So the pine needles are a constant thing on the ground. And so I could not see any footprints. So I was all excited. I was pumped up because my husband does not like to talk about Bigfoot. So for him to say this, I was like, wow, that's crazy. So then I read my neighbor's text and I just hopped out of my seat. So now after reading my neighbor's text, I was really scared. He said something last night set off his motion sensors around 2 a.m. And he said he looked outside in his driveway and he saw something on 2 legs. And he said he looked again and it was tall and it was sniffing the air. And I said, how tall? And he says, well, I don't know, maybe, you know, 5 feet. And I said, that's not tall. He goes, I don't know. And he says, and it wasn't Bigfoot. I said, okay, so then what do you think it was? He said, I don't know, a bear? Maybe it was a burglar? I said, a burglar? But you just told me it could be a bear. He said, I saw something sniffing the air on 2 feet, and then it walked off. And he says, I doubt it's a burglar. And then he sent me a text, and he said, I'm not going to lie to you, I slept with my gun close to me. And I said, okay, well, that's really creepy. And then I told him what happened here, that something slapped beside my house. And he's like, well, you know, that's strange. So that was that. Thursday night, we're laying in bed, and my husband hears these noises coming from the woods, you know, which I'm so used to hearing stuff, it doesn't, you know, like, freak me out anymore unless it's something like a house, you know, really close to the house. So he said he just heard some whistling coming from the woods, and we went back to sleep. Well, Friday, we left to go to Priest Lake, Idaho, and we were out of cell range for a couple of days. So when we were coming back, my phone, as soon as we came in cell range, it started going ding, 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 and I had all these messages, and I thought, wow, you know, I had one from my neighbor. Over the weekend, his wife, who is a nurse, he said it was around 4 or 4:30 in the morning. He was making coffee, and his wife was getting ready to leave. And up here, it's light out. At 4:30, it is light out. Not super bright, but you can see outside, and you know there's enough daylight there to where you can see outside, you know, and distinguish. So he said something was walking in his woods bipedally, and he grabbed his phone camera and he took a picture of it. And he sent it to me, and it looked really creepy. I could see a dark shadow there, but it's not clear. And he does not believe in Bigfoot. So I said, well, what do you think it is? And he goes, I have no idea. You know, maybe it's a bear. And I said, a bear 2 times walking off bipedally, that's not common. He said, well, it's not a person. I said, well, that's just great. So he said, well, it's not Bigfoot. And I said, okay, you know, I'm not going to sit here and argue with somebody. So in 1 week, something has slapped my house, and on 2 different occasions, my neighbor has seen something bipedally, and I am thinking, well, crap. So I walked my woods, and I really didn't see too much, but I did not go onto his property. I could have, but I was just like, really freaked out, and I'm thinking, great, so now something's slapping the side of my house. And I've made calls from my house over the years. I've known better, but I've done it, and I know that they're here in my woods. I mean, I've seen the signs. I've seen the footprint. And then my son, who is in his teens now, my youngest, he's into dirt bikes, and he's, been up in the mountains. And one day they were out dirt biking, and 2 Octobers ago, and the print that you're showing there with the boot, that was found off Blanchard Lake. So the water had receded, and he did not tell me right away. He told me like 2 weeks later. I said, why did you wait so long to tell me? And he said, oh, Mom, I'm just so sick of hearing about Bigfoot, blah. I was like, oh, man. So I asked him to show me where it was, and it was actually off of private property, off a logging, not abandoned, just closed down, where they log, different items for the small wood poles. I can't think now what they're called. So I'm thinking, I said, okay, y'all need to stay off private property, and, don't be coming on here. And he's, like rolling his eyes. Yeah. And I said, I mean it. So this last summer, my son loves to camp, and him and some friends were camping off Blanchard Lake. Well, one night, on this one particular night, they took our side-by-side, and they were eating or trying to go to sleep or something, and all of a sudden they started hearing things from the tree line. And out of nowhere, something like a huge rock, a boulder, was thrown into the lake. And where it landed, it was not very deep. So he described it to me as being like a skunk. And he said they were so scared. And he said that they called Fish and Game, and then they called, but nobody answered. Well, it's 2 a.m, so then they called the county office, and they didn't call 911. They called dispatch, and they actually talked to sheriff, and they're asking what to be doing this, and who knows what the sheriff said. So when he told me this the next day, I said, why didn't you call us? And I don't know what he said. So after that, I said, well, I'm not very comfortable with y'all camping, up in the mountains or anywhere. So he goes, Mom, no, sorry, I want to camp, And I, at this point, didn't know what to think because, in my mind, now they're messing with my kids. I called them under my property, and now I have this happening here. If that was, a Bigfoot coming around, or not, I have no idea. But now my kid is being scared out with their camping, and I'm hearing all kinds of screams up close and personal here in my valley, and I have audio recordings, and I'm just thinking, man, I was really, really terrified. So I don't call anymore from my house, but it's too late. I've already done it. That's a huge no-no. I certainly don't feed anything around here other than when I fed my horses. I don't have my horses anymore. I sold them. So they're around, and I will put out my audio recorder on different nights. This past Sunday or Saturday night, I can't remember, my dog came to me. It was 2 a.m, and she wanted out. I have 2 dogs. I have a lab and I have a Malamute. Normally, they don't always wake me up. Well, she came to me at 2 a.m, but I didn't get up. She came back and she put her head on my chest, and I was like, oh, okay. So I got up, and my husband was, getting mad. Oh, I need to get to sleep. And I'm like, okay, fine. So I opened up my door, and I think it was like almost 3 a.m., and I could hear the tail end of the howl. And it was, ah! And then my lab flew off the couch and ran out the door, and I stood on the porch, and then I heard another howl, and I ran and I got my audio recorder, and I turned it on, and I closed the door. I could not get the dogs to come back inside. They finally woke me up about an hour later because they were scratching on the door, and I let them in. And then I got my audio recorder the next day, and I started hearing it, but it takes a lot of time because obviously if I have 8 or 10 hours of recording, I have to kind of, listen, and sometimes I have to skip ahead. But within 5 minutes, I heard a howl again. So my husband has a program that he taught me how to use, how to cut out from those nights that I put out my audio recorder. If I have 2 minutes I want to cut out, he was showing me how to do that. So, sure enough, I heard another howl start within, 5 minutes of me putting it out there, 5 or 10 minutes. So, also this past summer we built a shop, and we had the metal delivered like the day before, and we had cut down like a lot more trees because, again, my property is all wooded. So this area where we built a shop, we had to knock down some more trees. So the day that we had the metal delivered, and some of this metal was like 16 feet long, I think it was the eve of what was that? The eclipse this past August. It was that night, the eve of the eclipse. I put out my audio recorder, and I think that was the same day that the metal was delivered. Well, in my recording, you can hear the metal thrashing, something's beating the metal, and then you hear a primate sound coming from the woods, but you have to really listen to it. But without a doubt, you can hear the metal thrashing, and I think I got 8 hours that night. And then I let some people hear, and I thought, well, that's really crazy. Something is beating, either picked up the metal and is slamming it, or they're beating on it or something. But it was really loud, and I just thought that was, that was just very strange. So, so now, I really worry when my son goes off, and, up on the mountain, and, we have rules and things like that, and I'm just, kind of just like, some years I don't have a lot of action, and, like this year I've had a lot, and, I don't want to see things coming back on my property and, slapping on my house or, anything like that. And also here on my property, I have a big X, and there's another big X, 10 acres down where the woods start. And in 2004, when I moved here, there's a lot of, this trail, I'm trying to think. Oh yeah, a game trail that goes along my property, and it goes off all the way to the mountains, and I have just like a lot of twisted, structures that I've been watching over the years, and so hopefully nothing will come back to my house and slap on my house. I have this new dog here, and he's pretty vicious. And we have the fence up now, so I'm sure that, that might play a part in anything coming around here. So that's pretty much it.
Yeah, it sounds like you got some stuff going on. Sometimes it's almost better not to believe in it, and that way you can go camping and stuff, because my favorite camping area, I'm half scared to go back there now, where the thing reached in the tent and grabbed me.
Holy crap.
Yeah, I mean, it was...
Where was this?
At Dale Hollow. The first time I encountered him down there, I was going to say, when you were talking about you got sick when you got hit with infrasound.
Yeah.
I got hit. I was going back deeper and deeper into the woods, rolling logs over, collecting worms to fish with. Mm-hmm. And I got hit, and it made me really, really sick for like 2 hours. I mean, deathly sick. I thought, it felt like I was going to die, kind of sick. And, but I slept it off, and, I went and laid down after I was done being sick. And a couple hours later, I was feeling a little bit better, and, got
When
back.
was this?
That was probably maybe about 4 years ago. And then the next time I was, down there, they were pushing trees over, and I saw it that time, and it was throwing stuff at us the whole time, and the dog was freaking out, wouldn't come out of the tent and all that kind of thing. And then the last time I was there, I saw the red eyes, and it took off, and the next night it came back, and I had my tent unzipped because it was really hot, and it reached in. At first it felt me through the outside of the tent. My shoulder was bulging the side out. And I thought maybe it was an animal or something. It was just, loafing around out there. And then as I turned and I looked toward the door of the tent, a big freaking arm came in, and he grabbed my right shoulder. And he just gave it like 3 squeezes, like he was just feeling like, what is that, And
oh, really? So it didn't hurt you?
No, it didn't hurt me. But I was scared it was going to pick the tent up and just take off with me. And so I ended up getting out of the tent after about 5 minutes of screaming. I built the fire up and waited till daylight, and I left. Because that was just.
Did you go back?
I haven't been back yet. I don't know if I want to camp there, man. When they start grabbing you, that's getting a little bit too close.
Yeah. I had heard that. Because when I saw the one in Sulphur Springs in East Texas, I don't remember seeing any red eyes. I don't remember seeing, anything. Just I could just see like the scowl through the shadows, and I remembered the moonlight because I was shaking so hard. And I told my friend about why wasn't somebody else there, because we were having this conversation. And then we heard this like a wounded animal sound, kind of like a turkey wounded. I don't know how else to describe it, but it was really, really loud. And then daylight came, and it was just a really strange night. And he said he had recorded what I saw, and I remember I had some people over one day, and I'm trying to think back if he showed it or not, because I remember seeing a video of something, and it was like, his face was just like scowling, and it was like leaning on a tree with his arm up. And I remember some people watching that video, but I don't remember if it was the one that I saw or if it was the same night and the same Bigfoot. But I remember that night that whoever I was with, that they were doing some recording and then they were showing it to some people, but there were some people that were saying something about the video. They were trying to like debunk it, and I remember getting mad and saying, well, I saw something, and if he said, you know, the date was correct with the night we were there, I said, this is true. This is what you're seeing really happened. And this person was just trying to be very critical of the video, and I remember that left a really bad taste in my mouth. And after that, I just did not share with a lot of people. And it just took me a long, long time till I would talk with people in general. But now I don't really care. I know what I thought. I know, you know, I've done a ton of researching, and I can, you know, go to an area and, you know, I've had people call me to go to their property, and I can walk on their property and take a look around, and I can look at the trees and, you know, game trails, and if there's a body of water there or not. You know, sometimes I can tell if they've had any activity or not. I mean, you know, I'm no, you know, expert, you know, and people like Kumbo and Bear, you know, those, I mean, geez, those guys are, you know, experts in my book, and, you know, they're really, really popular. So, you know, I'm proud to say that, you know, they taught me a lot of what I know. And if you ever get to hear any of these guys, or if anyone gets to have them on video or on their shows as guests, I mean, they are really lucky, because Kumbo is so smart. He can, you know, tell you about the infrasound and how it works and how it affects people. And he explained to me, you know, that's what happened to me. I had no idea. And Kelly, he's talked about Kelly, one of our researcher, you know, friends. She passed away. She was actually my best friend. She lived in outside of Dallas in one of the suburb areas, and you know, it was really hard, and I missed her. I missed her all the time, and I have some friends up here that I have started to research with, and you know, they're really nice, and I've thought about getting with some more, you know, like-minded people to go hit the woods, but those definitely were the, you know, the crazy times, you know, in the beginning, many intense situations, and just on and on. I could just tell you more and more stories. I mean, but, you know, Bear, you know, is such an awesome person. He taught me a lot, and, you know, they all just kind of mixed well together, and we had some really neat times. And, you know, what was so neat was that we didn't just stay in one place and research. We went to a lot of different places, and, you know, like Mississippi, and I couldn't always go out with them at the time. But up here, you know, so people are more open now, I think, to the topic of Bigfoot, because of, you know, technology and some of the TV shows, even though some of the shows are kind of stupid, you know, or they just, you know, are over and over again about the same thing, or there just isn't enough proof. You know, it's not easy. But one thing that I was taught is that it's very dangerous to be making calls, especially if you can, you know, call something in. And that was one thing that he said, that Bear, you know, has always said, don't be making calls from your house. So, I mean, I have. So I've kind of, you know, branded my place here, but I haven't done it in a while. I try to go far away now, but I mean, you know, I'm just hoping that that's it. I don't want any more creatures coming around my house, or nothing slapping my house. And as long as they don't touch my animals or scare my family or do anything like that, you know, take my neighbor's chickens or, come around and start causing havoc, then I don't care if they pass through here. But I have been to other areas, and I have been with people, and we do have weapons on us, and I have made calls. And Priest Lake just had a report recently. They reported it to the BFRO. And I was up at Priest Lake with some family members, and we went to this place called Granite Falls. And it's a short hike. It's actually close to the Canadian border. If you look at Priest Lake, Granite Falls, you can go park your car and hike up. It's a really easy hike. And then if you keep going, the trail keeps going, there's an old cedar grove where trees are like hundreds and hundreds of years old, and they're huge. They're not the redwoods, but they're huge trees. So on this one particular day, me and my sister, my husband, and my kids, and I don't know who else, we kept going up the trail, mainly because we thought we had to keep hiking instead of making this left. So we eventually went too far, and I had got some rocks, and I was, doing the rock planking, and then I had a bat on me, and I was trying to hit one of the trees there, but and within minutes we could hear something coming, and I thought, oh crap. So we started coming back down the trail, and then we could hear something coming, and then my sister saw this boulder in the trail, and it wasn't there when we had just, come up it. It wasn't there. So I was like, okay. So my husband, he had a weapon on him, but something landed in the ravine with a heavy thud, and everybody heard it. So by this time now, we were coming more back down the trail to where the old cedar growth was, and then these people were coming up the trail. So I was thinking, okay. So we hung around there for a while, and then a lot of people, were coming because that's a heavily traffic area, and so we hung around there for a bit, and we were just checking out the trees, and then you can go to the other side of the trail, and there's these huge waterfalls, and there was just a ton of people there. So we ended up leaving, and I've been there a couple of times, but I don't make calls anymore. And actually, I don't make calls from my house, and I will not make any, calls where there, are, people coming like that area, because I don't want to put anybody in danger. So, and that's kind of one thing that I was, was told I shouldn't be doing. So, and definitely not, not feeding them or anything like that. So,
yeah, I don't.
Anyway,
I don't do it. I don't make calls, and I've never really needed to. It seemed like they just come check me out, and that's kind of, I think, a safer way to do it. But anyway, we're gonna have to wrap this up. I appreciate you coming and sharing, and whenever you talk to Bear and Kumbo and them, tell them I said hi, and I've not ever talked to Bear, but I did have Kumbo on before, and I heard
you should get him on.
Yeah, well, I heard they broke up, and I didn't really think. I thought I'd leave it alone for a little bit, and see if they made up.
Yeah.
Or not. So.
Yeah. I don't know. But if you ever get...
Kumbo told me about it, but I didn't want to. I figured it wasn't my business to be, saying much about it.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what happened either, but it doesn't matter. They're both, I call them both dear friends, and I care very deeply for them, and, they both are very knowledgeable. I'm more so closer to Bear than, I am to any of the other members. But they were all good times, and I really do miss those days of when we were used to get together. But, they pretty much taught me mostly everything that I know. And it's been, it's been a crazy road, and I know the government knows about it, and I don't understand. I mean, things would change if they ever said anything, but, there's good and there's evil Sasquatches out there, and I know they've killed. I also know that they can relate to our emotions, like the female that came around a couple of times. And I know others that just want to come and just, want to mess with your head. And I hope that doesn't happen again, because, I've had some people say, well, I have some friends from Montana there, Bigfoot researchers, and they said, we'll come over and, we'll chase them off. I was like, no, I think we'll be okay as long as that doesn't happen again,
Yeah.
So, but it was fun coming on, and thank you very much.
Well,
so
you.
I'm on Facebook if anybody wants to follow me. Cindy Ann Goodbrake, I think.
All right. And if anything else happens, holler back. Okay.
Yeah, I'll try to cut out one of the recordings and send it to you.
Okay, and just hold on the line while I finish up here. Everybody out there in YouTube land, thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed that. And like I said, if anyone out there has something they want to share, you can go to brentonsawin@gmail.com. You contribute at a link in the description, PayPal me if you wish to do that. Until next time, God bless, and we'll see you on the next video. Bye-bye.